Okay, so today we are going to be diving into Bojack Horseman.
Okay.
And this is something that I think a lot of our listeners are going to be interested in because it's a very popular show, but it's also a show that a lot of people have like strong feelings about.
Yeah.
And we got this really interesting essay from a listener, and it
Well,
goes really deep into like kind of what the show is about, beneath the surface.
yeah, what's interesting about BoJack is that it's a show that's ostensibly about a horse,
Right.
like a talking horse,
Yeah.
but it's really about, you know, some really serious issues like depression and addiction and the pitfalls of fame.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing that they can address these like really heavy topics in a way that's still like funny and engaging and
Right. And I think the essay really digs into that. Like, how do they take something as serious as depression and make it relatable and even humorous at times?
yeah. And they don't shy away from showing just how like messed up Bojack is.
No, they really don't. And they use his experiences to like really illustrate the reality of depression. It's not just like,
Mm.
oh, I'm feeling a little down today. It's like really dark.
Right. And they show those like self-destructive patterns.
Yeah, you see the spiral. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, even if they haven't experienced depression themselves. Like we've all had those moments where we make bad decisions or we feel stuck.
Exactly. And the show doesn't try to sugarcoat it or offer these like easy
Right.
solutions.
It acknowledges that there's no quick fix for depression.
Yeah, like in real life.
And that's kind of refreshing to see because so many shows, they want to wrap everything up in a neat little bow.
Right.
But Bojack's journey is messy. It's full of setbacks, and I think that's part of what makes it so relatable.
And it makes you wonder, like, is part of his problem this constant chasing of fame, even though he had it before and it didn't make him happy?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, this show really dissects the whole idea of fame and the emptiness that can come with it.
And how fleeting it is.
Yeah, he's stuck in the past, like clinging to this idea that if he can just get back to that level of success, then everything will be okay.
But it's clear that that's not the answer.
Right. It's like he's trying to fill some kind of void with external validation.
And that kind of ties into the show's exploration of addiction, too.
Absolutely. It's all connected. Like he's constantly seeking something outside of himself to make him feel better, whether it's fame or substances or relationships.
Right. And it never really works.
It's just a temporary escape.
And then it usually just makes things worse.
Yeah, and the show doesn't shy away from showing the really dark side of addiction.
No. Like with Sarah Lynn, I mean, her story is,
Heartbreaking.
yes.
Absolutely heartbreaking. And it really highlights how damaging addiction can be, not just for the person struggling, but for everyone around them.
And it's interesting how the show portrays the entertainment industry as this kind of like breeding ground for these issues.
Totally. It's like the pressure cooker of Hollywood just amplifies everything.
Right. The need for validation, the fear of failure, the pressure to maintain a certain image.
Exactly. And I think that pressure contributes to the toxic relationships that we see in the show.
Yeah, speaking of which, let's talk about Bojack's relationships
Oh,
because,
boy.
yeah, they're a mess.
They're a disaster.
And the essay makes this point that a lot of his relationship problems stem from his own, like, deep-seated insecurities and low self-esteem.
Right. He's so afraid of rejection that he ends up pushing people away before they can hurt him.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And it creates this cycle of toxicity in his relationships.
And it doesn't help that he's surrounded by other people in Hollywood who are just as messed up as he is.
Right. The show does a good job of illustrating how the entertainment industry can attract these kinds of personalities.
Yeah, and how it
Yeah.
can kind of perpetuate these unhealthy behaviors.
Like it's almost like a vicious cycle, you know?
And then you have someone like Princess Carolyn
Oh,
who
she's such an interesting character.
he should,
Because on one hand, she is incredibly successful. You know, she's a powerful agent, she's driven, she's ambitious.
right.
But her personal life is a disaster.
Yeah, it's like she's bought into the whole Hollywood hustle,
Right.
but at what cost?
It makes you wonder, is it even possible to have it all?
Right, or is there always going to be some kind of trade-off?
And is it worth it in the end?
That's the question.
That's the question the show is asking.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not like a sudden transformation, you know.
Right.
He doesn't just wake up one day and he's a changed horse.
because that's not how it works.
You know, it's a process and there are going to be setbacks.
Definitely, and the people around him have every right to be skeptical.
Oh, absolutely. They've seen this all before.
Right,
So it makes you wonder, is he really changing or is he just saying what people want to hear?
exactly. And then there's that episode with Penny.
Oof. Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's where it gets really complicated
It really does.
because you see those darker impulses coming back.
And he knows it's wrong, but he still does it.
Yep.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful because it's like, Are we supposed to forgive him,
Yeah. Can you forgive someone who keeps making the same mistakes?
even if they're trying to be better?
Right. And it makes you question your own capacity for forgiveness, too.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
we all know people like Bojack,
Right.
people who are flawed and make mistakes.
And hurt us sometimes.
And it's up to us to decide how much we're willing to tolerate.
Exactly. And the show doesn't offer any easy answers.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's why it sparks so many conversations.
Because it's real.
It is.
Like, it reflects the messiness of life.
And it doesn't shy away from the difficult questions.
And yet there's still this, like, glimmer of hope.
I think so.
Like, maybe he can be redeemed.
Maybe.
We all can.
It's a nice thought, isn't it?
It is. And it's a powerful message, like, even after everything.
Yeah, even with all the baggage.
There's still a chance to be better.
And I think that's something we all need to hear sometimes.
It's like it gives you permission to be imperfect, you know? Like, it's okay to screw up as long as you keep trying.
Exactly. And I think that's really comforting for a lot of people to hear because we're so used to seeing these like perfect characters
Right.
in movies and TV shows.
You'll never make mistakes.
Yeah, and it's not realistic.
Not at all. So as we're wrapping up our deep dive into Bojack, what are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind from this essay?
I think the main thing is that Bojack Horseman is so much more than just a funny cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
It's a show that's willing to tackle some really tough and uncomfortable issues,
Right.
but it does it in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
And I use humor so effectively.
They do, and that's what makes it so brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it can make you laugh 1 minute and then have you like questioning your entire existence the next.
Totally. And I think that's why it's resonated with so many people, because it's reflecting these real human experiences,
Right.
whether it's dealing with depression or addiction or just the pressures of everyday life.
And those are universal themes. It doesn't matter if you're a horse or a human.
Right.
We all go through these things.
And I think the show ultimately offers a message of hope.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like, even with all the darkness,
Yeah.
there's this sense that things can get better.
It might not be easy,
Definitely not easy.
and it's going to be messy,
Right.
but there's always a chance for redemption.
Exactly. Well said. So if Bojack Horseman, with all of his flaws and bad decisions, can still find a way to grow, then maybe there's hope for the rest of us, too.
Maybe so.
Something to think about. That's going to do it for this deep dive on Bojack Horseman. What a show. Thanks for being here with us today, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.